Welcome to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And we will be your tour guides for this deep dive of Katsuhiro Otomo's 1988 juvenile delinquent political thriller body horror, Akira.
I'm glad you threw body horror in there because it's pretty gnarly.
It doesn't come in till the end, but it is severe.
Yeah. So this is one of those ones that I haven't seen in a time. It's been a long time, but we're also getting into movies like with maybe our last couple and then this one where the movies are I remember going to a video store and walking up and down the aisles and seeing them on VHS on the rack. I remember the Akira cover really acutely because it was a cartoon, but it was in the adult section. Yeah.
This really, I think for a lot of people, this was the thing. This was their introduction to anime, or at least we all kind of, depending on when you grew up, if you were of the last 2 or 3 generations, you had anime on TV, like from Speed Racer or Voltron or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
But this was like the first adult anime that a lot of us saw. It definitely was first or second for me.
Yeah, there was like a first wave where it was like Akira and like Dominion Tank Police and Vampire Hunter D, and that wave of anime, I rented them all.
Yes.
Yeah.
I rented everything that was in the animation, or I don't know how they worded it because it didn't even say it. Probably said Japanimation or something.
It said animated. The store I went to just said, I think it had an animated section.
Yeah.
And I remember when the first Transformers movie came out and was in that section. So.
And it's like, technically, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not
really
the same thing.
Yeah.
Optimus Prime does die. That's a pretty grim movie.
Yeah. It's definitely not for kids, but I guess it was for kids.
Yeah. I remember I didn't get to see that in the theater because my parents were like, oh, Transformers is on TV every day. You can watch it at home. And so I didn't get to see that movie for a long time. And I absolutely didn't believe kids when they told me Optimus Prime died.
Oh, man.
And they were like, he dies right away in the movie. And I was like, no, you're lying. They will never kill Optimus Prime.
Yeah, I love it. But anyway, getting back to Akira, this is kind of, for me, this is like kind of a golden era for anime.
Oh, yeah. It is. This is, not just, it is for anime and in general, sort of like the last one, RoboCop. This is one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
It's a very, very good movie. I'll spoil it for the folks at home.
Yeah, it's one of the ones.
Extremely good.
I have bought it multiple times. Like, I had the original dub VHS, and then when we got the subtitled ones, I got that. I bought the 20th anniversary Blu-ray. I had the soundtrack on CD and on vinyl. I'm big onto Akira. I had an Akira t-shirt.
You should do your other arm sleeve in anime tattoos all the
Classic
way up.
Anime?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a few good artists up in Seattle that really specialize in anime tattoos. Yeah. That's something to think about. You want to talk about it a little more, or you want to just do our roll for initiative?
I think we're going to get into the weeds on this one, kind of like we did for Ghost in the Shell. So let's roll for initiative, and we'll just save the commentary and our reminiscing for the actual chronological walkthrough.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. I got a 19.
17. Man, so you win.
First time in a while. All right. So I don't play a lot of video games these days, but there was one that an announcement that kind of caught my attention. Assassin's Creed Red will take place in Japan. They're actually making a shinobi style, stealth assassin, cool, kind of reminiscent of like Tenchu stealth assassins and gameplay, and it looks really damn cool.
Yeah, I have not. Is there a trailer or is it just an announcement?
It's an announcement.
Okay, that's I saw that announcement, but I haven't read the articles. I have loved Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That was a really fun game. And so yeah, I'm sold on this. I'm on board with this franchise now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And I mean, obviously I think Assassin's Creed, just the idea, lends itself more towards the shinobi style gameplay than like Norse mythology, just style wise. But yeah, this is really cool because I love stealth games. That's like a thing that I'm really into.
It's kind of my favorite part of like even like the Batman Arkham games is the stealth part. I love to have like a whole like warehouse full of bad guys and go and pick them off one by one.
Yeah,
that's my favorite thing to do.
That was my favorite way to play Cyberpunk 2077, was just sneaky hacking and long range kills and stuff. That thing's finally gonna in 2023 gonna get a DLC. So
I saw that.
I'm gonna start fresh when that happens.
Oh, just do a whole new playthrough.
Yeah, fresh playthrough. Yeah. All right, what do you got?
Okay, the one piece of news that I had was from the D23 last weekend. That's Disney's expo or their convention.
I got something from that.
Was they showed a teaser from Michael Giacchino's Werewolf by Night Halloween special.
Oh, no, that's no surprise that you picked up on that one.
This has been rumored for a long time. They've had it that they were going to have a Halloween special in October from Marvel. It's been on the calendar, but what it was has not been officially announced until now. Although it's like one of those poorly kept secrets. Everyone knew it was Werewolf by Night. What no one seemed to know was that it's a black and white gothic horror, like in the style of a Universal monster movie.
Dang.
So the teaser looks great. Michael Giacchino, I know him as a composer. He does the scores for films, so I didn't even know he was a director. So double threat. And it's written by Peter Cameron and Heather Quinn, who I don't know a whole lot about, but as soon as it was black and white, I was like, yes, I'm here for this.
Yeah. I'll probably check that out. It's gonna be in the theaters, right?
No. This is on Disney Plus.
Oh, Disney Plus.
It's a special. It's not a feature length. It's only an hour long.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Then I'm definitely on the hook for that.
Yeah,
that'll be cool. So I guess related, I have from the Disney Plus in 2023. We have Star Wars Skeleton Crew starring Jude Law.
Yeah.
Did you see that whole deal?
I saw the picture. I don't think no footage has been online, but
no. So it's set during the Mandalorian timeline, and it's basically. Here's where it goes a little womp womp for me. It follows a group of kids on an adventure.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, is Jude Law going to be their wrangler? Is he their?
I think that's sort of the gist that I got from it. I forget who the director is, but he said that it has kids in it, but it's not a kid's show.
Huh.
So I'm expecting something more along the lines of like a Stranger Things vibe.
Yeah, I'm going to soften my stance because on many friends' recommendations, I started watching Stranger Things. I finished season 1. I know I'm years behind, but dang, that season 1 is good.
Season 1 rips, man. Like you're just like, oh my God. Like you just go episode to episode.
Yeah. So
2 dips a little, and then 3 and 4 are powerful.
Really, really strong.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't see myself stopping watching it. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you finally watched it. It's, I never know. Like, you don't like kids, and so it's like this is a show about kids, but it's really good. I promise.
Yeah, it is. It is really good.
Yeah.
So, did you have any other pieces of news?
No, I figured I'm light on news, but we've got. Rings of Power and the House of the Dragon to talk about.
So my last piece was Rings of Power. So we can just Rings of Power into House of the Dragon. So Rings of Power, 3 episodes are out as of this podcast, and they have done an amazing job making this setting feel grand, but it's also extremely sterile and it's boring. I don't care about any of these characters at all, except the dwarf family. That's it.
Okay, so
I don't like any of the others. Galadriel is also shitty, and I love Galadriel from the movies.
Yeah. So I was talking to our mutual friend Mario about this, and he's a little bit higher on it than we are, and I said Hugo Weaving and Cate Blanchett leave impossibly big shoes to fill. And so I just can't, nothing really wrong with these people, but I can't accept them in my mind as Elrond and Galadriel.
Yeah, and if he's Elrond half-elven, his father was a hobbit, because that's the squarest head I've ever seen.
And he's not that tall, so,
Yeah, what the hell? He's short and square-headed. Because he looks like a hobbit.
Yeah, he goes in there with the dwarves, and like he's a head taller than them. Like he's not that much taller than the dwarves. But that second episode where he goes to see, what's the dwarven prince? Durin.
Durin, yeah.
Yeah, when he goes to see Durin. That's my favorite episode of the three by far.
Easily.
It kind of comes alive when they go to the dwarves. I like the orcs a great deal. There's some cool fights. Like, it's really beautiful and just so boring.
Yeah, it's like the Silmarillion. It's like reading a textbook about your favorite thing. But textbooks about my favorite things, I love the Martin textbooks. Right. I read that shit multiple times.
Right.
Is it just because Martin stands on the shoulders of a giant that his stuff is more interesting? No. I mean, he says, I was watching Martin interviews the other day because that's what I do. And he said that Tolkien is the greatest fantasist of all time.
I can't argue with that, but the thing about, I think what makes the World of Ice and Fire and the Blood and Fire books less dry is because they're written from the perspective of maesters. There is a bit more personality injected into it, right?
Like I was just looking at the afterword on the World of Ice and Fire today. I was cracking that book, and it's great because the maester talks about, I wrote most of this book during the reign of King Robert, and now we have the death of our good hand, John Aaron. And so it actually makes you feel like these are real people, these are living texts. This is a narrative, not just stereo instructions.
Right, which I think the appendices and the Silmarillion are there to provide context and things like that to the world of the interesting books.
Well, and those were published posthumously, the Silmarillion.
They have that air of they're his personal, so he keeps everything straight.
It would be like if someone pulled all my campaign notes for every game I've run in my own custom setting and like put it out as a book. It's like, that's not polished. That's not ready for other people. That's just for me.
And it's full of information, and it's full of the seeds of telling interesting stories, right?
Yeah.
Which ultimately that's what you want the Amazon show to do is to tell interesting stories with those seeds. And so far, they're not really doing it.
Yeah, why didn't they hire any writers?
It's really tough. And something else that's really frustrated me is that it's next to impossible to find, like, quality criticism of it because of the trolls and everything.
Sucks. I have not said a peep of negative on the internet about negative about Rings of Power. Because I don't want to feed into that negative feedback loop that's being perpetuated by the racists.
Yeah, I Googled legitimate criticism of Rings of Power.
Yeah.
And just came up with articles about controversy and trolls.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want valid criticism that isn't about black elves. Because I could give a fuck about what color elves are.
Yep, don't care.
Are the ears pointy? We're good.
Yeah, if the story is sufficiently good, the casting is invisible. So I said it in a group chat with you that basically I'm just going to hope that episodes 1 through 3 or 1 through 4 or whatever are a slow build, and we get this amazing avalanche of quality in the last half of the season, because so far it's really slow and really boring.
Yeah. But
so what about House of the Dragon?
House of the Dragon is sort of the opposite, I think.
Yeah, it's a ripper from day one.
Yeah. I mean, I know not everyone's loving it. But I'm enjoying it.
True. If you don't like incest or killing or people being shitty to each other, it's not the game. Not set for you.
Yeah, I don't know. I like it. And then it's one of those things when people don't like it, I kind of like, am I dumb? Why do I like this thing? Because I thought it was good.
And I mean, it doesn't make sense. Like when I haven't read any criticism of it that I really agreed with, because some of it was about casting, but like Millie Alcock and Matt Smith are amazing. They completely steal every scene they're in. The whole deal with making the House of Valerian have Summer Islander blood as well as their Valerian blood. It doesn't change anything at all. And the Corlys Valerian and Laenor were pulled off amazingly.
Yeah.
So
Corlys is like right off the bat is like a fan favorite character.
Him and Lionel Strong are the only two you like on the small council.
For sure.
Because the rest are just dipshits. Except Otto Hightower, who isn't a dipshit, but he is a weasel. He's got like Peter Littlefinger vibes.
Yeah, so that was something. There was a lot of stuff. I was very skeptical of the first episode, and then let my guard down and just enjoyed things from the second and third. They did a lot of things that in the long run, I think end up being elegant storytelling in that first episode. In just like the way they introduce Daemon, where he's sitting on the throne.
Yeah.
That's going to make you, if you're a fan of the original series, that makes you think of Jaime
Lannister.
And so you immediately kind of know what you're getting into with Daemon, that he's a complicated villain, multifaceted gray character.
Yeah. Because anybody who's read the books knows that Jaime starts as a heel and kind of does a hero turn.
Yeah, by the end he's a full-on hero by the end.
Yeah, he becomes lawful good basically. He embraces his role as the Lord Commander.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he refuses to do evil shit that his sister tries to get him to do. Yeah, he fully does a turn, and so you see Daemon on the throne and you're like, "Huh,
he's the Jaime."
Yeah.
Rhaenyra is kind of shown she's framed similarly to Arya. And they just do like little things that make you think of season 1 of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And if the whole show was nothing but Easter eggs and winks, I was going to be this sucks.
Yeah.
But then they did what they needed to do, and they built on it, and they made something. It ended up just being shorthand for people who know, so they have an idea what they're watching.
Yeah, and if you weren't in on all of those inside things, it didn't make the show worse. It didn't change that stuff. And I think that there's a lot of things to like about this show, like King Viserys. He's super complicated. Like he wants to be a good dad. He also wants to be a good king. He wants to follow his heart, but he wants to do his duty. He's just a good character.
Yeah, he fails at all of those
things. Yeah, he's a shitty king, and he's a bad dad.
But yeah,
he's not a good husband either.
I do. Oh, dude. Yeah. I do wonder, and this is too new, we probably shouldn't be spoiling it, but there's been a lot of people.
We haven't really spoiled a lot. I mean,
people, well, if I would spoil the most recent episode if I said what I was about to say.
Oh, okay.
But there's a lot of people who have been standing for Daemon since episode 1. That stuff happens in the most recent episode that I was like, did you carry through with that after that? Do you still love him?
Well, I mean, not to sound extremely dweeby, but like, there's a book about this. Like everyone who is super into it already read the book and knows.
Yeah, but this is way more detailed. Like
it
this
is,
kind
of.
of.
But the broad strokes.
Yeah, and so the book is Blood and Fire, which is the history of the Targaryens.
The first half of the histories, because there's supposed to be a part 2.
Yeah.
After the
Dance of Dragons.
After Winds comes out.
Oh, okay, so never.
Yeah.
But you get these events told as the history book records them.
Yeah.
So it's not, privy to the sort of insider information, what's discussed in closed rooms and things like that.
There's like kind of
conflicting
3 narratives in that book. You have Grand Maester Gildane is the main author, but then there's another maester who contributes, and then there's the account of Mushroom.
The jester.
Yeah, who's
the fool.
Yeah, so you get all of these, and Mushroom's accounts are always really bawdy and extremely like inappropriate. But yeah, so it has a lot of intentionally unreliable narrator moments.
Right.
So it leaves a lot of room for the writers of House of the Dragon to expand. I actually think that kind of book is perfect for TV adaptation because it doesn't have every little detail.
Right. And you kind of get a choose your own adventure of when you have 3 accounts, you know, you can pick one of the 3 or make some sort of melding of the 3.
I should read that book again at some point.
I'm going to wait until after the show is done so that I can watch the show with a little foggy recollection.
Yeah. I'm probably going to wait too. I like the idea of waiting until Viserys dies and then reading the Viserys section.
Spoiler.
Oh yeah, if you don't know about the House of the Dragons premise, it's a generational saga about the Targaryen dynasty. It's not about one king. It's about the whole dynasty.
Yeah.
And so eventually he's gonna die, and we're gonna move to the next generation, and then the next generation. Like this is long form storytelling. They do multi-year jumps between episodes, let alone seasons.
Do you kind of wish they'd started earlier? I know the Dance of Dragons is the most exciting, dramatic part, but I'd also like to see the Conquest.
I would have loved to see an Aegon the Conqueror series with Balerion at his full power, and I would love to see an Aegon the Conqueror series.
Yeah,
it's not in development. There are like 6 series in development, like an animated one, Jon Snow. What else? There's a Duncan Egg.
Yeah.
There's like a couple more too. Oh, there's one set in Bravos.
Yeah, there was something like 8 different shows that are in development, and that in development doesn't mean that they come to fruition. But,
no, if we get at least 1 or 2 more, that would be great.
Yeah, Martin is he's trying to MCU this. He's said as much.
Oh yeah,
that he wants the world of Ice and Fire just like to be developed and built out. And I think, he's not making a lot of progress in doing it himself. So maybe as a shepherd is a better role for him to sort of like hire good people and let other people tell the stories in his world.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. All right. So that's probably enough TV nerding. What do we got for podcast fuel? All
right. What we have today is Neko IPA from Hapas Cervejaria. I'm sorry. It's Portuguese because they're a Japanese Brazilian brewery out of Sao Paulo. Haria? It's like cerveceria, but it's the Portuguese version of it.
It's a really good IPA.
It is. It's very solid. And they have copy, so I'll read it. Do you know Maneki Neko? One of Japan's most famous amulets, the lucky cat has multiple meanings. For example, with the left paw raised, it brings customers. With the right paw raised, it brings fortune. It was with this in mind, we decided to launch Neko IPA, a recipe with a totally unusual ingredient. Luck. So, it's like an American IPA, 5.7 ABV, 40 IBUs. Not super remarkable. Like,
no.
It tastes very much like what you expect an American IPA to taste like.
Yeah, if I went to a brewery in, the Portland Metro and I sat down and I just ordered their flagship IPA and this came, I'd be like, all right, doing all right.
Doing all right. Yeah, it's that good middle of the road. Not surprising me with anything, but not letting me down.
Yeah, I'll drink the whole thing. No problem.
Exactly. All right, let's take a break and come back with our deep dive. All right, divers, welcome back. Let's dive into Akira, 1988, Katsuhiro Otomo.
So one thing that really strikes me immediately when this movie starts, because I've watched a lot of more recent animation, not extremely recently, but just in general,
Right.
was this this is old school,
hand painted.
And it, like, the first thing I thought of was The Wizards, the 1977 classic.
Oh yeah, I love that movie too.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, it's like cool old real animation.
There's something about real paint that you can't fake it, right? Like the digital. There's a lot of great computer animated anime and animation in America as well.
They need to get an AI and have it study the old school real classics and emulate it
And make it look like paint.
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah,
I'm sure an AI could do it.
I'm sure our robot
Maybe
overlords can do everything.
In the far future of 2019, when this movie is set.
Right. Before we get too far, I want to recommend a book called The Impact of Akira, a manga R evolution, where the R is in brackets. It's revolution, but the R is in brackets, by Remy Lopez. And if you have Kindle Unlimited, it's free to read. And it provides a lot of valuable background information on Otomo and the cultural context and the cultural impact of the manga and the film. So rather than cite it a whole bunch, I want to mention it now. And if you have access, you should read this book.
All right, I did not read that book, so we'll let Nick do the nerd-splaining.
All right, so we have a shot of Tokyo, 1988, July 16th, looking like a very normal city, and then like a singularity opens up in the center of the city and wipes it out.
It's like almost like a nuclear bomb or something, but it's a singularity or like a black hole or something crazy. It just goes off, and I guess that starts the Third World War. Yeah,
because this is something it's more detailed in the manga, that basically no one knows what this explosion was, and it just sort of kicks off all over the place, nuclear attacks, because it's just the assumption that that's what it was, right? Is that it was a nuclear bomb. But I mean, you see it, it's completely quiet. There's no actual explosion.
Yeah, and one of the things that struck me was early on, even before we get the huge, big red letter title screen, Akira, is immediately the sound design on this is really good. I was like, appropriately dramatic things, and then silences, and then just really good music. And I was like 2 minutes in, and I was like, the sound design in this is excellent.
Yeah. So a few things. The movie is pre-scored, which is how American animated films are usually done, where the voice cast does all of their acting, and then the animation they're animated to the actors.
Oh, okay.
So that the words match the mouth movements and everything, which is not, and definitely was not, standard in Japanese animation at the time.
Okay.
So that was something kind of unorthodox. And then since you mentioned the score, Geino Yamashiro Gumi is the musical collective that does the score. They're an experimental musical group, incorporating like Japanese folk music and Indonesian folk music and prog and electronic music. And Otomo sought them out specifically because he'd heard their album that they had released, and he thought that they sounded both futuristic and primitive, which is sort of the vibe that he wanted.
That's really cool. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that. And then when the big block letter title Akira comes across, it sent me like with a nice wave of nostalgia, Yeah. So I really liked the look of this next sequence, where we get kind of a look at the metropolis of Neo Tokyo.
Yeah.
And it has all of these, artificial islands, and you have all this obvious like urban decay, but futurism. It looked like Blade Runner-ish.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. So the manga predates Blade Runner, and then the anime is obviously coming after Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And I do think Blade Runner is an influence on it. Especially when
Yeah.
you see the sort of like the hologram billboards and everything.
Oh, yeah,
that
I
seems
love
straight
that.
out of Blade Runner. And Otomo cites Blade Runner as the reason why he thinks Akira was able to cross over to America. He kind of felt like Blade Runner gave the American audience a cultural context to put Akira into.
Yeah, we had an on-ramp for this.
Yeah, they're like, I know what this is. I saw another movie like this. Yeah.
And it was just really cool. Just having that little I don't know, cityscape. It reminded me of all of these cyberpunk movies do it, where you get like this pan through the city and you get to kind of see what you're dealing with. I enjoy that kind of setting building where you just get to see it.
And we come down onto street level, and we go to this dive bar called Harukiya, and we're kind of following this punk in there into the bar, and he comes in and he orders in the Japanese audio, he calls them peanuts, but he orders drugs from the bartender, and we get our first glimpse of Kaneda, who's our lead character he's the gang leader of the capsules.
Of the capsules, yeah.
And there's riots on the TV, and it's just a lot of flavor. We're city flavor.
I like that there's a CD jukebox. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that would have been pretty modern, I think, in 1988.
Oh, yeah, I think so. And I mean, I remember seeing CD jukeboxes back in the day. I mean, nowadays you get one of those banks that's like a glorified MP3 player thing.
Man, I hate those because they'll charge you they charge you a premium for less played songs. You can play anything, but they'll charge you extra if it's not a popular song.
Yeah, like when you want to play like Zaster,
they're
like, what?
Like, I want to play all of Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast.
Yeah. So they're in this bar, and the thing I really like, so they're not in there that long.
Yeah.
They go out and go to their bikes. And I really like how they have like stickers on them and all this stuff. And then when they drive away, they have almost like tracers like Tron.
Yeah. So
It's really cool.
The Tron bike is a big influence on Kaneda's motorcycle. Basically, he's got this kind of long, low red sport bike.
Yeah.
And it has kind of three daddies, essentially. The Captain America bike from Easy Rider that Peter Fonda rides.
Yeah.
The Tron light cycles designed by Sid Mead. And there's a German designer named Luciano Colani, which I know it's an Italian name, but it's not his real name. And he had these concept motorcycles that wore that candy red and had sort of that same shape.
Well, and an interesting thing about that motorcycle is that it looks like a sport bike, but it's actually a recumbent bike. You sit back in it.
Yeah.
And that's really cool.
That's what comes from Peter Fonda's chopper is that riding position, because Otomo said it was a dignified riding position.
Yeah. And did you know that Honda actually makes a bike that is inspired by the Akira bike? You can buy it.
You told me about that.
Yeah, it's called the Honda N&amp, sometimes marketed as the Voltus. But basically it's similar to the Akira bike. It's not as exactly the same.
Yeah.
It mostly comes in black. But I've seen on the internet people who have painted them red and whatnot, and it looks really rad. I've always wanted one of those bikes. They're not even really that expensive to buy one of these. I mean, as far as motorcycles go, you're looking at like $10,000 or so, which is fine for a
new motorcycle for sure.
And it's just rad. It's super cool. But anyway, I am a big fan of vehicles. Every time we watch a movie, I always comment on the vehicles.
Yeah.
And this movie delivers with the motorcycles.
Yeah, it's every character that has their own motorcycle. Every motorcycle has personality and tells you a bit about the rider. So the vehicle design is like character design in the film for sure.
I think that's really important in a movie like this about essentially biker gangers.
Yeah, and so they take off because they've got their rivals, the clowns, sort of.
Yeah.
They've been corralling them into a choke point somewhere where they could kick off a fight with them.
Yeah, and I will say immediately, I think the gang names are weak sauce, the capsules and the clowns.
Yeah.
But whatever.
You have to take into consideration anything sounds cool in English when you're in Japan. Mm-hmm. So the clowns just sounds like a foreign name.
Yeah,
like
if we had gangs that had cool foreign names that were just basic,
yeah, it just whatever, a random Japanese word like the Neko, like the beer, the Nekos.
That'd be cool. We had the cat gang.
Yeah, and it's like the cats. That's a boring name.
I want to join the cat biker gang. Yeah, so they're like driving down, trying to meet up with the clowns, and there's all these like violent protests on the street just all the time at random.
Yeah, so just I feel like this is boring given all this background information, but so Otomo, his generation, the baby boomer generation, they're just like in America, really, in the late 60s, early 70s, tremendous political upheaval. There was a lot of protesting going on, specifically a lot of protests about the renewal of the treaty with the United States, about like whether we're going to keep military bases there and all of that stuff. And so there was a really strong like left-wing anti-war movement. And that's what these like labor protesters sort of represent that throughout this movie.
Yeah, a lot of them, because a lot of their signs are like in English and stuff. Their stuff could be just taken from the news. Like it's like Antifa stuff, like down with fascism or
or stop imperialism.
Yeah, imperialism
like
is what they call it, which is pretty much fascism. And the thing that I think is really cool is when they encounter the clowns and they do this road chase, the clowns have more chopperish, kind of rat rotted, cool, not as sporty looking bikes. They're more like muscly biker bikes.
Especially Joker, the clown's leader, has like a big ass chopper with huge pipes on it and everything.
I really like that.
And he's introduced riding that bike, and he has like his arms folded across his chest, which if you read the manga, that's the way when Tetsuo takes over the clowns. That's how he rides that bike when he basically takes it.
Crosses his arms.
Yeah, because by then he has psychic powers and he doesn't have to steer. But it's so iconic, and I love introducing Joker that way. Like he just seems, and he's big. Like you don't see a lot of heavy people in Japan, and so he's just very imposing, and he's got tattoos, and he has this big chopper. Joker's not to be effed with.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then during this chase, we get our first Akira slide on the bike, which becomes an iconic trope.
It is like the most homaged thing in animation. There, you can watch all these supercuts of like 50 or more people doing the Akira slide.
Yeah.
I had a t-shirt, or I still do, but it is literally falling apart with the frames of the Akira slide down the back of it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's in bad shape.
I kind of want an Akira movie poster shirt. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool too. And I looked into this because I just sort of wondered if they had any idea how iconic that was going to be. And in the storyboards, it's just one box. It's not like a whole page of boxes. And the panel from the manga that it's referencing is like the background of a panel. It's not even the focal point of it. And so it just goes to show like you never know what the thing that's really going to stand out to people is, because I don't think anyone knew this was going to be the scene of the movie.
Yeah, a sideways motorcycle slide into a turnaround. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty cool. I want to say, just sort of on a meta level, by this point in the movie, the idea of this being dated animation has completely faded from my mind. I'm just super enjoying the coloring and the lighting choices in how they've colored these frames to show a lot of light and a lot of shadow. I just felt like it looks really good.
Yeah, this was a very expensive anime for the time, like much higher budget than other anime, and it's all on the screen. Where they spent the money shows.
Yeah, it was $9 million for this thing, and it ended up making $49 million just in theatrical release. Obviously, it made a lot more when it was released to video,
international, and everything. Yeah. So the cops show up, and so the gangs take off, and we cut over to a gut shot man, and he's dragging a little blue skinned boy through the streets of Neo Tokyo, and they're getting chased by police dogs.
I'm just thinking to myself, like, man, that dog or those dogs look really cool. That kid looks really ugly.
Yeah, little Takashi. That's where I got my name in Japanese class, came from Takashi.
Oh, nice.
Because Akira and Tetsuo both got taken before I could get to them.
Oh, and you went with Takashi and not Kaneda?
It was not on the list of names. Kaneda's a surname. It's not a first name.
And you had a list you had to choose from?
We had a list of Japanese names to pick, yeah. And so I picked the last one from Akira that was left.
His name is Shotaro Kaneda, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're getting pursued by these police dogs, and this scene has always stuck with me because the dog lunges at him and he shoots it, and the blood splatters on this car, and there's a little kid in the car, and he presses up against the window.
Yeah.
And I kind of, when I was watching it the second time with Lisa, I paused it and I was like, this is the difference between like a masterwork animation and just like run-of-the-mill animation.
Yeah.
Every car has people in it, and they're all doing things and interacting with what's going on. It's a fully realized world. It's not just like, Scooby-Doo background painting that doesn't move. Everything is considered.
Yeah, and I think that these scenes, which could almost be considered just sort of throwaway scenes as far as they're just setting things up.
Yeah.
They put in a lot of effort even in these scenes. I think it's important to introduce your characters well, and that's pretty much what this was.
Yeah. And so the guy, he ends up getting kind of caught up on the wrong side of the police barricade because the cops have barricaded off streets while the protesters are marching through. And he shoots out one of their spotlights, and then they just, they terminate the guy with extreme prejudice.
Oh, yeah. They just light him up.
Yeah. And it's only after they've riddled him with bullets, they go, hold up, he's got a kid with him. And they pause for a second. And it's just, it's a lot like RoboCop in that they just put a lot of bullets in people, excessive amounts.
And then the kid screams out, and it shatters the glass and all the high rises around. It's a pretty dramatic scene.
Yeah.
That's when you kind of get the first inkling that this kid has like special abilities.
Right. And that sort of expenditure of psychic energy, we cut up to Masaru is another one of they call him the ESPers, the psychic children. He's sitting in his Professor X chair up in the helicopter, and that kind of lets him pinpoint Takashi, because Takashi teleports away, and Masaru knows like where he went to, and so the helicopter follows after.
Yeah. They've got these helicopters following, like flying around. This is like total police state. Police state. Like the cops are chasing the motorcycle gangs, but then there's also the Esper and the helicopter, and so we've got like multiple things going on here.
Yeah,
it actually gets kind of I wouldn't say hard to follow, but it's definitely like they're lacing things together.
Yeah, and sort of everything, our two gangs, the police and the military, everyone is heading west towards the old city, which is both where the Olympic Stadium is being built and where the big crater is from the Akira incident. And so everything's heading that way. Kaneda ends up laying his bike down, but Tetsuo's he's trying to prove himself, and so he pulls ahead of the rest of the gang and goes after the clowns on his own. And it doesn't go his way once he gets there.
Yeah, and it seems like, so at this point, what, Tetsuo ends up crashing into Takashi.
Yeah. So
he who's an Esper.
He clubs one of the clowns in the head with a pipe, and then he misses the kid in front of him, and Takashi sort of, reflexively blows up his motorcycle.
Yeah.
And so Tetsuo crashes across the ground. Then the rest of the gang gets there, and Tetsuo is in very rough shape when they arrive. And then immediately military spotlights are on them. The feds are there, right off the bat.
Yeah, so basically having not watched this movie in a very long time, I was like, man, there's just a lot of heat, and we've got these little weird kids, these espers.
Right.
They're like they're embroiled in this, and it's just very clear, that this motorcycle gang fight just happens to have crossed paths with an escaped Esper, and so the military is chasing him down, trying to catch him, and they end up crossing paths, and things don't go super well for the gangers.
Yeah, it is just very bad timing, essentially, for our Bosozoku, as a Japanese biker gang.
Yeah.
Because they all get arrested, and Tetsuo just gets dragged into the helicopter along with one of the clowns. His body's in there. And that's not how you move a body that's been in a motorcycle accident, dragging it by the arm. They really don't give a shit if this kid makes it.
Yeah.
That's the impression I get. And these are supposed to be 15, 16-year-old kids. They're incredibly violent with them. Like they rough them up pretty bad.
The kids are pretty miscreants themselves. Yeah. They're not acting like model citizens.
That's true.
But they get treated like complete garbage.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I'm not going to say it's right to treat bad kids the wrong way, but they're definitely acting above their age.
Yeah. And so there was just a little bit of dialogue that I thought was important is that Masaru, when he talks to Takashi, that he says, that we can't survive in the outside world. Mm-hmm. And this, we'll find out more about like their dependence on medication, just to kind of keep their psychic powers in control.
Yeah, basically, Masaru is the Esper who's helping hunt down Tetsuo, the escaped, Takashi, escaped Esper.
Yeah,
and they all look like small and blue and like old people.
Yeah, well, I mean, it will spoil it. They are old.
Yeah,
they're all quite old, but they've just stayed small and childlike in some ways, and then they've aged naturally in other ways.
Yeah, they're just weird looking.
Yes, it's very creepy. I like. Did you watch it dubbed or subtitled?
Subtitled.
Okay, I prefer. Well, my favorite version is the original dub from 1988. But that's also the worst way to watch it. I think it's the worst translation.
I could have watched the dubbed version, but I thought, I'm doing this for the podcast. I better watch the subtitles.
Yeah. So I watched the original dub, and then I watched the current version of the subtitles, and it is just such a better translation than the ones I've seen previously. The movie makes a lot more sense in this whenever it came out. I think in the early 2000s. This version of the subtitles are the best translation I've seen.
And it's pretty dope because both subbed and dubbed versions are available for free if you have a Hulu account.
Oh, really? They're on Hulu?
Yeah, I watched it on Hulu, $0. Pretty sweet.
I figured you'd watch it on Funimation. I think it's on there too.
Oh yeah, we have.
You have all the anime things.
Yeah, Carrie does more accurately.
So, anyways, our gang, the poor capsules, they're getting processed down at the police station, which the police seem like they've taken over a gymnasium because they're processing lots of protesters, right? Because we've got these labor demonstrations that are going on. And Kaneda spins a story about how they were on their way to visit his sick mother, and then the clowns attacked, and they had to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And the cops don't buy any of it. But these are also not who they're looking for. They're after the anti-government insurgents.
They're like, we realize you're biker gang members, but we're just not after you. We're after Antifa.
Yeah, basically. It's like, you're not on our list right now. And
there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in this thing, like a guy with a failed grenade who gets completely beat down, and there's no computerized stuff. One thing that I noted in Blade Runner is they had computerized everything. Not so in Akira. They have literal books, and they're like filling out papers. There's not a computer to be seen.
It was like dossiers, but Japan's kind of like that. Like if they're a cash society,
that's true. They are cash.
They like to do things the old school way, even now. So maybe that's not as unrealistic as it seems like it is.
Oh no.
And so basically, once they kind of figure out these are not who they're looking for, they're going to release them. And Kaneda he makes a move. He saw this girl. First, he saw her in the dossier that the policemen were looking for this girl. And then he saw her in the crowd, and he grabs her and says, "Oh, she's part of our group. Can she go too?" And the cop is basically more upset that he called him Oji-san, which means uncle. He's like, I'm only 25 and I'm not married. He's like, what you call me old man for? And it's like, yeah, go ahead and take her. And so he gets her released, and he's trying to pick up on her, and she gives him the slip because she's about the revolution. She's not trying to get caught up with these thugs.
And she looks a lot like Kaneda. Like they're both short-haired, short, dark-haired, similar stature.
Yeah.
Like I was looking at that, and I was like, if I were an artist, I might have made a little differentiation there. Like,
so something in the world of manga, something Otomo gets a lot of credit for is drawing people that look ethnically Japanese.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to like when you think of like or you think of anime, you think of like the big eyes and weird colored hair and everything. He's sort of known for having a more realistic style, and so people look, I guess, more plain and less cartoonish.
Yeah, they look more real.
Yeah, but she has a hat. That's how you tell her apart. She has a hat. And so she gives him the slip, and then that grenade finally goes off.
Yeah,
which it's just perfect comic timing, like because he's kind of cursing her out for giving him the slip, and then the bomb goes off just when you've totally forgotten about it.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, well, we're done with the police station scene. Oh, now behind them in the background, boom.
Yeah. And so then we cut over to the colonel, and he's talking to a member of the Supreme Executive Council. And the council member is telling him that there's a mole on the council that's leaking information. And he's trying to kind of warn the colonel about, being more political and how to handle the maneuvering. And the colonel doesn't give a fuck about political maneuvering. He's just like mission focused.
Yeah. He's the type of guy that you want to have as your military leader, but not as your like leader.
Yeah. And then we cut over to Tetsuo getting, I call it the sci-fi MRI. And I thought of Ghost in the Shell. It's like the same contraption that the Major kind of floats through with the rings going around her.
Yeah, and they reveal that Tetsuo has powerful psychic abilities.
Yeah, something happened.
They reveal this. They say this mysterious name, Akira.
Yeah, because they overlay. They pull up Akira's aura on the machine, and then they kind of lay Tetsuo's aura on it and show the similarities between them. Because somehow whatever the incident with Takashi has given Tetsuo a psychic awakening.
Yeah. And we kind of,
we're just bouncing back and forth.
Yeah, and there's kind of an illusion that Akira was the, like a big bad problem, So this crazy medical facility, it's interesting to me when they're in there and they're kind of doing all this stuff. It's way more high tech than anything else we've seen in the world. Like the police station, the bar, anything. This is just the most high tech we've seen anywhere.
Yeah,
so it's pretty cool.
It's kind of what's the I guess the cyberpunk thing is always the high tech low class or high tech low society or something like that. This is the high tech. It's all in the government. Yeah. You don't really see any high tech out in the streets at all. it's almost like the people in the streets are still in the past.
Yeah, for sure. It's they don't have anything like this at all.
Yeah, and from there we cut over to the technical school that the capsules all go to.
Yeah, so this scene actually kind of struck me as a little bit, I don't know, it was kind of throwaway scene. And I bet in the manga this was really cool because it was like a whole like deal, like their time at this shitty school or whatever.
Yeah, I think everything is because the manga is 6 volumes and they're like phone book thick.
Yeah.
So everything is more developed. So we're just getting a little bit of background flavor of what their lives are like. And basically, their gym teacher beats the shit out of all of them. He goes through, and the principal pretends to clean his glasses while the gym teacher literally punches them all in the face.
Yeah, and the school is just absolutely filthy. Like, it's disgusting, and they're all just like beat up, puking blood.
Oh, I know, it's so over
nasty.
the top when he spits up. He like because they come out of the class and they don't talk back at all. In fact, they thank the teacher for their discipline until they're down the stairs, and then they all yell and talk shit. And then they get outside, and the girlfriends are all
the girls are trying to pick them up and whatnot.
Yeah, and in the old school, the '80s dub of this, the girls all have like Long Island accents.
Oh god!
And so it's it gives you an idea of like these are reform school boys and these are reform school girls. Like they're all bad kids.
Yeah.
It's very all Clockwork Orange is what I thought of.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's Otomo is a huge fan of Stanley Kubrick. Like, and so his work is always kind of laced with Kubrickisms and Kubrick homages.
That's pretty cool. Because, you know, like it's like cross-cultural influence on kind of different art forms.
Yeah.
So then we kind of cut over to like a hospital, and a nurse says, "Oh, there's a problem in Tetsuo's room."
Yeah.
And it kind of lets us, like alludes to there being a big problem. And then it kind of cuts to a laundromat. And there's Tetsuo. He shows up.
Yeah, we met his girlfriend. His girlfriend, Kaori, was one of the girls, and she was asking about him. And I guess they don't keep very good track of their psychic kids because Tetsuo just walked right out of the hospital.
Yeah.
And he shows up, at Kaori's dorm, basically, and is like, needs help. And she's the sort of dutiful girlfriend that gets him a sandwich and a Coke and, like, wants to know what happened.
She's too good for him.
Oh, yep, and it gets her later, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so then the next day, while everyone's in motor shop class, Tetsuo rolls up and steals Kaneda's bike and takes off.
Yeah, who does that to their best bro? Like steals their buddy's bike.
Yeah, there's a lot, and since you bring it up, this is a good time to talk about this. So Japanese biker gangs, Bosozoku, they're very hierarchical.
Yeah.
Hierarchical. Oh, man, why can't I get that word out? There's a regimented way that things, and it's top down.
Yeah.
Kaneda is the top. He's the leader. And Tetsuo, even if he's in the gang for unlimited amount of time, he's always supposed to be subservient to Kaneda. And Tetsuo is often breaking that rule. And so that comes up a lot, like in the language they use when they talk to each other, when he calls him Kane-chan and stuff like that, when it's sort of diminutive. And that's a real disrespect to the leader of your gang. You can't talk to him like that.
Yeah.
And so he's constantly breaking these norms, like stealing his bike. He shouldn't even have been sitting on his bike earlier.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So Tetsuo's way out of line. And he takes off on the bike and promptly kills it because he doesn't know how to handle the gears on the bike and gets himself caught up in clown territory.
Yeah. Man, I could not even imagine someone jumping on my bike, driving it away, and fucking it up. It'd be like if they grabbed my guitar and played it and then just like dropped it.
Blank.
I was like, fuck.
It's like, this thing's out of tune. And drops it on the ground.
Oh, man, there'd be a fight.
Yeah. And so the clowns roll up and rough them up, and it's pretty ugly. Kaori gets assaulted.
Yeah.
And you kind of, I was a little worried it was going to be worse than it was, like, because it's been a while since I watched it, and I was like, oh,
it's a Kubrickism.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad, but it's bad, but not as bad as it could be.
Yeah, they like tear her shirt and whatnot, and I'm thinking, I'm getting ready for some Kubrick style gratuitously bad scenes, and it stopped at that, and I was like, okay, I guess they were just proving that these are like super bad dudes.
These are bad guys.
There's no I like trying to have some sympathy for the clowns. They're shitters.
Yeah, and our friends, the capsules, get there rather quickly, and
they were about to the clowns were about to like burn Kaneda's bike.
Yeah,
the cool red bike.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's the symbol of their gang. Like, that really, if in a gang war, burning up that bike means something.
Yeah.
And I mean, and they show up. Something that comes up to me right away about Kaneda in action. He has this reckless courage about all of the stuff he does, because he literally like jumps off of the front fender of one of the clown's bikes and kicks the guy in the face. And Kaneda's not a bright kid. No. He has a hard time kind of following the plot along with the audience, but he will always be the first one into the action in pretty much every scene.
Yeah, he's a go hard. That is his defining quality, is that he's just super enthusiastic. He goes into things full speed.
Yeah. And so we kind of cut shortly ahead, and Tetsuo is putting the boots to the clown that jumped him, and he's fully planning on killing him, and Kaneda stops it, and Tetsuo just sort of goes off about his role in the gang, and always being second fiddle to Kaneda, and Kaneda always has to save him, and he's sick of it, and then he starts having like a psychic problem, like
a gnarly headache.
Yeah, and he's having visions, and he sees scenes from the end of the movie. He hears that name, Akira. He sees the underground facility where we find out later that Akira is at. And then like his guts fall out, and like he has a real bad time.
Yeah, it's gnarly. And then a CRC truck shows up.
Yeah, because I guess they were tracking him after all.
Yeah, they've got their espers doing psychic tracking. And they pick him up, and they're like, later.
Yeah, it's pretty wild that they just sort of let him escape and just sort of watched him.
Yeah.
And to the point where when he started having psychic activity, they're like, all right, now we roll in. But they would totally just watch from afar while he kills someone in the street.
Sure.
That's not a problem for them.
Well, yeah, killing a shitty gangbanger, who cares?
Yeah.
They're military.
Yeah, they literally don't. They don't care at all.
I think it's funny, like, in the next scene, the girls aren't into the guys anymore since they don't have their bikes.
Yeah, and the boys they're being very sullen, right? Like,
yeah.
They've got themselves roughed up by the pigs twice now, and Tetsuo's gone again, and they're just not happy, and the girls, they're like, this is a drag. And they leave, and just before things get too boring, Ryu and Kei set off a bomb in the mall, and Kaneda's like, there's that cute girl that I want to bang, and he chases after her and abandons his bros to go chase the girl.
Yeah, I mean that's Kaneda, I guess.
He just charges in without thinking.
All ass or no ass. There's no half in him.
Right, and he chases after her. Ryu puts Kei in like a dumbwaiter and sends her like downstairs somewhere, and they're gonna meet up later. But she pretty much gets found by the cops down like in like a storm drain viaduct sewer thing.
Yeah.
And Kaneda follows the sound of gunshots there and just runs down and starts fighting cops for her.
Yeah, and like together they kill a couple of cops, like no big deal. I'm like, holy shit, you guys are teenagers and you're just cop killing NBD.
Well,
like, you're not even hesitating.
She shoots that cop in the face, and Kei looks pretty shook, and Kaneda like pulls her out of there. And then when we catch up with them later, he's like, so that's like the first time you killed anyone, right? So it's like, it's not that we're young enough. I feel like we can start over again. And he's just like, he's just totally willing to brush over that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you gotta appreciate that kid's attitude. Meanwhile, Tetsuo's back in the sci-fi MRI.
Yeah. And he's having this like weird dreamscape thing. And there's kids playing on a playground, and it's him as a boy, and Tokyo's crumbling around him, and then he starts crumbling, like his own body, and then there's a girl, Esper, who's also weird, blue-green skin, looks ancient, and she saw Tetsuo's dream.
Yeah, the colonel comes into the baby room to see her, and she said that she had a dream about Akira returning, and the city was going to be destroyed again, and so many people are going to die. And the colonel's like, oh, that's very bad news, Kyoko. Like, I don't want that to happen. And so he and the doctor, they go check on Akira. Like, is Akira still in the refrigerator?
Yeah, and then so like then like the colonel like goes to the council and tells them about this shit, and they basically just dismiss him. They're just like, yep, no big deal, fuck off. And then so he's like, well, I wonder if I need to kill Tetsuo to prevent this. I could just do this myself if the Supreme Council isn't gonna do anything about it.
Yeah. And when they got to the subterranean base or whatever, everything was fine. Nothing was out of the ordinary.
Yeah, I really like this thing where the colonel and the doctor, they're going down this elevator.
It's that sort of diagonal elevator like coal mines have.
Yeah, and it's like a tech skyscraper into the earth. And as they go down, it's like it's getting darker and darker. And then they get to this giant sealed, high-tech, like sealed vault doors. And there's a high-tech control room. And it just looks really cool.
Yeah. It's very Matrixy. Like, it reminds me a lot of the stuff in the Matrix.
And there's this red light. And you see Akira 28.
Yeah. Whatever Akira is, it's still in the box.
I think it's an Evangelion type thing.
They use those elevators too.
Yeah. It kind of had shades of that. I mean,
for sure. Back with Kei and Kaneda, they go to the revolutionaries' hideout, and Kaneda's still just pushing his luck, trying to pick up on Kei. Like I said, he's like, we can just start over. We're young. You haven't killed a lot of people. Everything's gonna be fine. And then the real grown-up revolutionaries show up, and they just immediately assume Kaneda's a spy.
Yeah, and they just like shove him into an apartment and lock it, and they're like, yeah, stay there.
Yeah, and so Ryu, he has a plan to break into the lab where the kids are all held at. The mole has got them pass cards so that they can get in as workers. And they start talking about they picked up some kid from a motorcycle accident, and now he's their latest guinea pig. And Kaneda's eavesdropping, and they pull him out. He's like in the vents or whatever. They pull him out, and now they really think he's a spy. And so we cut away from him. He's begging for his life, basically.
Yeah, at some point in there we see like there's kind of a scene out in the street, and I think it's like a setting scene, like they're just trying to set the air, and there are like cultist weirdos. They're like Akira cultists,
right? Because from there Ryu goes to meet with the mole, who's Councilman Nezu, which
like the short dude.
Yeah, like, Nezu means rat, so this is a pun.
Yeah.
So he's the mole. He's the rat on the council, and he's the guy that is feeding information to Ryu. And so Ryu reports to Councilman Nezu, and he's like, saying, this kid showed up. He knows the other kid. I don't think he's smart enough to be a spy. It's like maybe we could use him as a distraction. Blah blah blah. And Nezu points out the monks and the cultists, like you said, they're on a different skyway. That character, Lady Mitako is that's like the nun that's chanting with the beads and everything.
Yeah.
She's a much more important character in the anime. She just gets like in the manga. She gets like 2 scenes in the movie and dies, unceremoniously.
Man, like I kind of have a hankering to read this whole manga, but it sounds like it's just so many volumes, so much material. It would take me forever.
No, it won't take you forever. It's like a weekend.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Is it novelized? Can you get it on Audible?
No,
Because that would be dope.
You can't. And I mean, and it's beautiful, man. Like it is so exquisitely illustrated. You're really robbing yourself by not reading it.
That's true.
And I know Carrie subscribes to every anime and manga thing there is, so you could probably just read it on your tablet. You don't even have to buy the 6 volumes.
You mean on her tablet?
Yeah.
That'd be like her playing my guitars.
It's definitely worth it.
It's worth it.
It's totally worth it. And I've picked up all 6 volumes just like when I've seen them on sale and stuff. So it's like they're very available. They're out there.
So did the author of this, is this guy still around?
Otomo Sensei?
Is he still making material?
He is, yeah.
Does he go to the cons? Can you get him to sign your shit?
No.
He's got too much money for that.
Yeah, he just recently was in America promoting something because I read an interview with him, but no, he doesn't really do conventions, and he doesn't do manga anymore. He's just a director.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Otomo Sensei is very much alive and well and still producing work when he feels like it.
Yeah, like you do when you have money.
When you have something this successful, yeah. But anyways, Lady Mitako is one of the Esper children. Also, she's number 19.
Yeah.
So she's like an earlier generation, and she's leading like the Akira cult, basically.
That's pretty cool.
And the cops roll in and they break up that demonstration, start roughing up monks. And stuff.
Just busting heads. I love it. I mean, I love it from a wackadoos fighting authority because I don't like either type.
Yeah. So this is when we cut over to the executive council. Because the colonel, he's asking for more money for the Akira project. And the council basically is like, you're wasting our money as it is.
Yeah.
How do we know Akira is even real? And they're all fighting amongst themselves. And they tell him they're going to put him in front of an inquiry committee. And he's just pissed because as far as he's concerned, he's the one man protecting the city from imminent destruction. And these bureaucrats are just like tying his hands behind his back. So he excuses himself politely and storms out of there.
Yeah, he's a better man. I would have just left Tokyo.
Yeah, and just let it blow up.
Yeah, I'd be like, all right, I'm moving. I'm gonna go live in the north.
He's got that samurai spirit, right? He has the sense of duty that he has to protect the city.
Kyoto could use his protection.
Right, there's other cities.
He could become their Batman.
Yeah. I'm going to go somewhere far away, safe, Okinawa, way south, protect a little village, not even a city. Yeah. So back at the hospital, Tetsuo's doing real bad. His powers are advancing because you see him kind of grab a glass of water.
Yeah, he's using telekinesis. He's moving water over to him. And he's still very unwell. He's in this hospital room.
And he notices, before we cut away, he notices like these toys in the room. There's little teddy bear.
Like little stuffies.
Yeah. And he kind of notices it just enough that we know there's a reason. He notices it, so we notices it, basically.
Yeah. I just thought, what's the significance of this crap? And then it cuts away.
Yeah.
And the resistance to Cell is sneaking in, and they're using the key cards that they got from the rat.
It's the classic, we're cable repair people.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, the cable's not supposed to be repaired for another couple days. And he's like, hey, I'm going on vacation at the end of the week, and the parts came in early. I've got my crew with me. Can we just do it now? Sure. Come on in. Mm-hmm. Back over to Tetsuo.
Social engineering. Yeah, and then Tetsuo has these like hallucinations, like the toys are all crazy, like they get bigger, and it's the mega teddy bear has a snake fist.
Yeah. And they're all leaking milk out of them all over the place. It's really gross.
This definitely reminds me of Japanese versions of crazy hallucinations. It's like in manga when stuff happens, like it has a certain style to it. This is very Japanese.
I've seen this so many times that this all seems normal to me, but I can very clearly remember like being 12 or 13 whenever the first time I saw this and watching all this stuff like, what is happening?
Yeah.
What am I even watching? Like, no context at all for milk leaking teddy bears with snake hands. Like it's just so bizarre and weird.
Yeah, like I remember when I was young when I first saw this movie, honestly, like a lot of other movies, I just kind of blocked out the parts I didn't like and didn't focus. Like I was really focused on the motorcycles, the laser rifles, like
the cool tech.
Yeah, like I was really focused on certain parts, and I just thought the espers were just creepy weird, and I just kind of blocked them out. Like in my semi-lucid memories of things from before the before times. I don't even remember this stuff. Yeah, this is new to me.
So basically, he's getting attacked by all these giant. It's a car, a bunny, and a bear, and they're tormenting him. And he kind of stumbles backwards and steps on a glass. And when he cuts his foot open, and the kids, the espers, sort of reveal themselves because they're scared of blood, and you see them kind of like the visions of the teddy bear and stuff fall away, and you see the kids, and Tetsuo kind of psychically tracks them to the baby room. He knows where they're at.
Yeah, and this spot, it's like, it is interesting to me that even though they're old, there are very childish moments with these espers, like the afraid of blood and stuff.
Yeah, they're sort of permanent children. They're locked in
these ancient, childish, weird super beings.
Yeah, basically, and they can't really, exist in the outside world, and they don't have a good life, I don't think, even with all the toys.
Yeah, for sure.
Meanwhile, the revolutionaries, they're down in the sewers trying to make their way to the. They're also trying to get to the baby room.
Yeah, more sewer shit. And Kaneda is just getting gross again, just like getting gnarlied. I hate being dirty. That's like a thing for me.
Oh, it's so gnarly because there's the guards on little flying speeders.
Oh, I love the hover bikes.
And everyone takes cover, and Kaneda just stands out there in the middle of the sewer pipe, like, I don't know what to do. And so one of the guys tackles him down and puts him underwater, and it's not water.
Water.
Yeah, water in quotes. And he comes up and he's like, "Ugh," like he's so he's so grossed out.
I really love these hover bikes, very Star Warsy.
Yeah. They very much so, like the Star Wars speeders.
And they're very cool. And then Kay just blows the guy away, and they steal the speeder bike.
Yeah,
I thought that was rad because he's a biker ganger. He can drive this.
It takes him a little bit to figure it out, and I think this is another one of these, like, one of the best animated, best choreographed scenes. Like, there's a few that really stand out to me, and the whole thing with the way the water's being kicked up. And Kaneda, try hard. Kaneda jumps onto one of them while it's moving and tackles the guy into the ground, and then shoots down the other one with the one that he pulled the driver off of, and they hijack one, like you said. And it's just like, I was not going to describe everything that happens, but it's just so well choreographed. And I think the whole thing's beautiful. And then he's trying to figure out how to drive it. Because obviously, you don't intuitively know how to drive a hover bike.
No.
Like, it's not the same thing as a motorcycle with wheels. Like, there's other dimensions that you're moving in. And so I just think it's all really
I'm
done.
willing to try.
Yeah.
I'd love a hover bike. That would be awesome. And so then it cuts back to the hospital, and Tetsuo is kind of discovering that he has telekinetic abilities.
Yeah.
And he's pissed. He's like trying to find the espers because he's mad at them for like fucking with his brain.
Yeah.
And he like kills orderlies and cops or I guess they're not cops, they're soldiers or whatever.
Yeah. He's just splatting people. Like he's figured out how to splat people, and he's using it liberally. You know what it reminded me of is the Vader hallway scene in Rogue One, because you have these red lights and he's just moving down the hall. Like he has a target and he's going to it, and no one can stop him. He's just like, blowing them up with the Force and everything.
Yeah, we need more Darth Vader.
more Vader hallway action.
Yeah, and so they kind of team up on him, the espers, and now that you've got all three of them, the little fat one, the
Masaru,
the runaway, and the girl
Takashi and Kyoko.
And they're teaming up on him, and they're basically Tetsuo wants to kill them.
Yeah, like basically, fool me once, shame on you, but you can't get me with the teddy bear twice.
Yeah.
So it's like they come at him with the big teddy bear, and he's just like, "Bwah, no," and wipes the teddy bear away. He's much more powerful than they are already, which they've been doing this for, since the 80s.
Yeah, and so Kyoko is like trying to get Kei and Kaneda to come and help them stop Tetsuo.
Yeah, she sort of puppets Kei.
Yeah, she kind of like, I don't know what you'd call it, like possesses her. And it's not exactly sure when the possession ends. Like there are occasionally moments when you're like, was that really what Kei would have done?
I feel like she just sort of leaves the back door open for any time she needs to go in there and either drop some exposition through Kei or walk Kei somewhere that she's going to need her. Yeah. She leads them to the baby room. And Tetsuo, we cut back over there. Tetsuo, he's just planning on killing these kids, and then he recognizes Takashi. He's like, yo, you're the kid that blew up my motorcycle and started this whole mess. And then the colonel and doctor arrive way too late to try and talk Tetsuo down.
Oh yeah.
And Masaru tells him it's dangerous for big people to use the power, and Kyoko is saying, Tetsuo, he's going to awaken Akira. And that just sets Tetsuo off because he's had that name Akira kind of pounding.
Yeah, he's like, head. I'm going to hunt for Akira.
Yeah.
He leaves the hospital to find Akira.
Yeah, he just pulls the information out of Kyoko's head. He's like, where is Akira? And she's like, like, I'm not going to tell you. And he's like, I got it.
Yeah, he just brain steals her.
But before he leaves, Kaneda and Kei come crashing in there too.
And Tetsuo is such a dick with such a chip on his shoulder. He just like fucks up his friends. I don't even think like Kaneda's not really his friend. He hates Kaneda.
It's weird. I think they just have that thing where like he loves Kaneda. Kaneda's his protector, but he also resents Kaneda.
Is that a thing that happens in real life? Like,
oh, that definitely happens with like the runt of the group, the beta male cuck of the biker gang. Tetsuo is tired of being the cuck, but Kaneda is also his only friend. So it's like he has that kind of thing that he's wrestling with there. And I think if Kaneda would like sort of acknowledge that the power dynamic has changed, Tetsuo probably would act better. But Tetsuo he's like, now you're the cuck. Yeah, I'm cucking you. And he's like, no, you can't. I'm the leader of the biker gang.
Yeah, and they can't sort their shit out.
Yeah, because they're only 15, right? Like they haven't gone to therapy. They don't know about their trauma and their issues. They have a lot to figure out, and one of them has godlike power.
But the other one's cool. I don't know. Cool is kind of better than godlike power.
In its own way, it is its own godlike power.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because somehow, because he's cool, no matter what crazy thing he's caught up in, Kaneda makes it through everything.
Yeah, for sure. He has plot armor.
Yeah, he totally has plot armor. Yeah. And so Tetsuo takes off. He flies out of the place. The colonel is just beside himself pissed. He looks like he's going to kill Kei and Kaneda. Like, he's so mad. But then when he sees that the kids are alive and they tell him Tetsuo's gone to the Olympic Stadium, he's going to go get Akira.
Yeah.
And so the colonel's like, no, I'm going to go get Tetsuo.
Yeah.
And
I'll fuck you up later.
and he marches out of there. He's determined to stop Tetsuo. He's calling on reinforcements. He's going to get in his cool double prop helicopter.
Those are really rad versions of military, like Army Chinooks. Chinooks are a lot more kind of like rounded and aerodynamic. Those have a lot more like hard lines and almost like spaceshipy vibes.
Yeah.
I love the helicopters in this movie. They're really cool.
Yeah. And so it's right before he gets on his very cool, not quite a Chinook helicopter. The executive council decides this is the time to move against the colonel.
They trump him. You're fired.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to strip you of your rank and arrest him. And the colonel's like, counteroffer, how about a coup d'etat?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to take over the government and declare martial law. Shoot this guy. And the soldiers shoot him.
Yeah. It's I didn't really see that coming, but I like it because I hated those. The Supreme Council people were just completely lame and not taking care of anything.
Well, it's a really weird situation, right? So the Supreme Council, their ability to enforce their power comes from the state-controlled violence of the police and the military, right?
Yeah.
So how do you turn on the guy that all your power is derived from? You know, like, and say, we're stripping you of your power. And he's like, actually, I hold all the power.
Well, this is why a lot of countries end up having military dictatorships.
Yeah, because some colonel is like, I'm sick of this shit. And they take over, and then they just stay in charge forever.
Yeah, like the guys with the guns answer to me, not to you.
Yeah. So coup d'etat happens. He orders all the members of the council arrested and removed from the chain of command. And Tetsuo doesn't make it very far before he starts having problems because he can't really control his psychic powers. And so he stops off at Harukiya to get some pills and try to take the edge off the migraine that's plaguing him.
Yeah, and like this is like one of those cool bars in Tokyo where you have to go down the stairs to get into it. I went into a couple of those in Tokyo, and it's just totally rad. And then this fucking jerk destroys the place.
Well, to be fair, the bartender tries to price gouge him on the pills.
I mean, that doesn't mean you kill the guy and destroy the bar.
It's not.
It's a little bit of an overreaction.
It's a little bit of an overreaction. But I think when a lunatic wanders into your bar in hospital scrubs, looking like that, and he asks you for some pills,
you just say you're fresh out.
Yeah. Or you either give him, because it's not like he's got a wallet in his scrubs.
Sure, you say, if I give them to you, will you leave? Or I'm fresh out.
Yeah.
Those two options.
Something like that. But instead he's like, with all the demonstrations going on, supplies are really hard. So there's been some price increases. Just blow you up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't go good but of course he doesn't know he can blow people up.
Yeah. He thinks he's got this young kid like right where he wants him.
Yeah. And so,
and then some of his gang mates, Yamagata and Kaisuke, they show up and they're like, hey, what's going on?
Yeah. Because they're like, the bartender's dead. And Tetsuo's like sitting on a chair piled up close to the ceiling, just popping pills like candy and talking crazy. And, he tells them that Kaneda's probably dead by now. And do you know where he keeps his bike and all this stuff? And Yamagata's not having it, right? He's like, he wants Tetsuo to kind of get back in his place.
Yeah, he's like, you're the cuck of the gang.
You're the cuck.
Get back into your bottom dog position.
It's like, it's really Kaneda's number one I'm number 2, Kaisuke is number 3, and you're the bottom. That's how this works. If we get some new guys, you'll move up a little bit.
Yeah.
But you'll never pass us, and that's how this works. Yeah, so it doesn't go
And
Yamagata's
so he
way.
kills Yamagata. No big deal.
Yeah, that sucks. He's always one of my favorites.
Yeah, like, why you gotta kill your buddy?
Kaneda and Kei, they're in jail. They're in like a holding cell.
Yeah, they're in like prison orange jumpsuits. Yeah, why are they in the same cell together? What kind of prison puts?
I don't think it's
men
a
and women
prison. I
together?
think it's just like a room in the hospital, right?
Oh,
Because
okay.
they just locked them up somewhere there, and they're having like a kind of philosophical talk about what the power is, and Kaneda just can't keep up with it.
Yeah, it's like Kei is really smart and deep, and Kaneda is just a dingus.
Yeah, he's not a bright. The one thing that kind of clicks to him is how dangerous the idea of Tetsuo with all that power is. That's like the one idea that gets through to him.
Yeah, because she explains what's an Esper and what's going on, and he's like, okay, so this is bad. Tetsuo's an Esper. We got to take care of it.
Yeah, and basically, he kind of is like, it's my job to kill him. It's sort of like the
he's
long
like,
and short
I'm
of it.
his gang boss. I got to take care of him.
Yeah, and so what's her name? The Esper girl, Kyoko. She puppet masters Kei again for a little bit, and she breaks them out of jail. She pops the locks, and lets them out. And we kind of hear the psychic kids talking about like, we have no choice but to use her because she just sort of fell into our lap, and she's the one thing we have.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna have to do this.
And basically, like, they're escaping, and there's like tanks in the street and helicopters everywhere, and it's really kind of showing like a military fascist society. Like, everything's turned out because the colonel, he's ordered everyone, all military assets, to go after Tetsuo.
Yeah, and the city's on lockdown. There's like no one out in the streets anymore, and other than military, you just see tanks and stuff rolling down the streets.
And so, like,
but Kaisuke managed to find Kei and Kaneda, and so the three of them kind of get together, and he tells them what happened. Tetsuo killed Yamagata, and he's asking about your bike, and Kaneda's pretty distraught, and he gets Yamagata's bike. And
he kind of like swears a solemn vow of vengeance.
He's like, I'm going to send it to him, and he rides it into a wall so that so Yamagata will have his bike in Valhalla.
Yeah, I like that. Like how he sends him the bike into the afterlife. That's like a true bro.
Yeah, he's a good gang leader.
Yeah, he's a good friend. I mean, why is Tetsuo so terrible? He can't just be bottom dog forever.
I mean, is it that bad to be the bottom dog of a biker gang? Probably. It's probably pretty bad. You probably have to clean a lot of things.
Yeah.
So while they're having their sort of Viking funeral for Yamagata's bike, Takashi shows up to teleport Kei away. And Kaneda is pissed. Like he's like, it's not fair. You can't just use people like this. I should be the one to kill Tetsuo. And he's mad about it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's it's like a cool scene when they like show up before they teleport, and like Kei is like walking on water.
Yeah.
And like this, like, Akira's power exists within everyone.
Yeah,
that's just kind of like a cool spiritual moment. I want to know more about this cult of Akira.
Because basically, they're able to activate the power within Kei and use her.
Yeah.
As though she has powers, even though she's not awakened or whatever.
Is this more explored in the manga?
I think it probably is. I mean, we're getting into the part where it starts really rushing ahead in the, like, most of the movie is in the first volume and a half of the manga.
Oh, okay.
And then we're like, skip ahead to the end. And so they really start condensing stuff here.
Gotcha.
Because we cut over to Mr. Nezu at his mansion, and his aides are like burning documents, and he's freaking out. He starts packing up
Yeah.
all his important shit into a briefcase, and he's actively having a heart attack. I think it's brilliantly portrayed across this.
Yeah.
It starts with him sweating, and he's taking the nitroglycerin pills, and his arm kind of goes limp, and he's clutching his chest, and like it's a really good portrayal of a heart attack.
Yeah. And Ryu comes in.
Yeah.
He like tells him the mission's failed, and then like the dude, what's his name, Nezume?
Yeah,
he just
Nezume.
like pulls the gun and like blows him away.
He shoots him in the gut, and then shoots like 2 more times and misses both times. Like it's it's weird. I always weird to call it acting, but like it's really good portrayal. Both, I mean, because he's having a heart attack, and he's also hopeless with the gun, right? Like he's not like a good shot.
Yeah, like he knows what it's for. He just has no practice.
Yeah, exactly. And so he goes out of there with his briefcase full of money and documents and everything, and he tries to make his escape. And Ryu is just like stumbling along behind him, like.
He's not dead.
He's not dead. He's dying. And he's still somehow like subservient to Mr. Nezu. It's a very weird relationship, and the politics of the movie are really confusing because it doesn't really have a side. There's no good side. Everyone's sort of different levels of bad.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a movie where there is no like purely good character or faction.
And somehow, so someone in the government is feeding the revolution, right? Like, and undermining the government. And so it's like everything is corrupt. It's also corrupt that the revolution, the people at the top of it, are subservient to people that are in the government.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So the whole thing is all shady.
And so then it cuts scene, and you like see a street scene, and then you see a helicopter cartwheel through the air by and explode, and then Tetsuo walks out of the fire, looking totally badass.
Yeah, he's got his hair's gone all like big and spiky.
Dragon Ball.
Yeah, it is very Dragon Ball looking.
Or should we say Dragon Ball is very Tetsuo looking?
You know, they're pretty around the same time when they're. I think this just shortly predates the original Dragon Ball. Otomo said the hair was inspired by Sting. That was where he got the spiky hair from. The military, they have him in their sights, and they're a little reluctant to shoot at a 15-year-old kid, basically. But they finally do it, and Tetsuo just stops the shell midair and blows it up.
I really like how he took the time to get himself some red fabric to fashion into a cape so he could look suitably badass.
Yeah, he rips the cape out of the store window.
Yeah, I like attention to detail like that.
Yeah. And so the Akira cultists, since no one really knows what or who Akira is, they just assume this is Akira. And so now he's got like worshipers too. So he has an entourage that's following him as he just slow walks his way to the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah. They're getting there at the cryogenic storage thing, and I love how he just completely crushes a tank with his brain.
Yeah,
that is really cool. I love that animation.
Yeah, and so Kaori sees this on the news. She sees Tetsuo on the news, and she goes out to find him. Kaneda gets on his bike and takes off to go find him, and he leaves Kaisuke behind, basically, and just he's like, "This is my job. I have to go do this."
Yeah.
And Tetsuo's crossing the bridge to go into the old city, and the army has a blockade there, and they have those cool laser rifles you were talking about.
Oh yeah.
With the battery packs, and they start firing on him, and he just decides the best way to handle that is just tear the bridge down, dumps everyone in the river.
I do really enjoy that. Like, the laser rifles are sick. The Akira cultists are really cool. And then he's just like, well, let's just drop this bridge. Who cares? All my cultists are on here. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, he really does not care about his worshipers at all. He just dumps them all in the river, too.
Just putting that out there, divers. If you guys were to form a cult around us, we would care. We would not drop you in the bridge in the water. So like then Tetsuo goes down into the bunker, and Kay is like trying to appeal to him. She basically tells him to stop being a dick.
Yeah, she's already there.
Yeah.
Down there in the Akira refrigerator or whatever you call it. And they kind of start a little psychic battle, basically.
Yeah.
The thing where they look hard at each other and fly around. Everyone starts converging. This is sort of the second time everyone has converged over there in the old city.
Yeah.
The doctor and the colonel show up. Kaneda shows up and he grabs a laser rifle off a dead soldier.
Yeah.
He's like, well, that his little loot icon was over it, and he went over and collected it. And we see Tetsuo brings the whole Akira refrigerator up out of the earth.
Yeah, that part is really cool. How he just like exhumes this entire thing. Like he basically defeats Kay, and then pulls the Akira cryogenic chamber out of the earth, and like tears it open.
Rips it open, and it's just filled with jars of organs. And the colonel gets on the mic, starts dropping knowledge. And he says, after Akira's transcendental awakening, he was subjected to every imaginable test that science could come up with. And now he's just a bunch of jar full of guts.
Yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, and then we froze them, trusting that in the future we could figure out a way to do more tests.
Yeah. And, well, he's got kind of Tetsuo, in an existential crisis. He tells his subordinate, activate the Sol satellite.
Oh, yeah. I love the idea of orbital weaponry.
Yeah. That was big in the 80s. Reagan was into that.
Yeah, yeah.
So everyone was thinking about it.
And so, like, I like that at this point, like, Tetsuo's trying to figure out what to do with the jars of remains. And Kaneda, still, he's trolling him. He makes fun of him. And it immediately made me think of that one clip, or that little thing that Uncle Roger puts on his videos. Emotional damage.
Because every time their conversation always starts out happy to see each other, and then one of them shits on the other one.
Yeah.
And then it all falls apart. And it's happened this time. It's Kaneda kind of starts it. Last time it was Tetsuo that kind of started it. But he's like, I thought you'd be over here crying for help again or whatever.
Yeah.
And he fires on him with the laser, and he I think he wings him, right? The first time he catches him in the shoulder.
Yeah, it just hits him. It doesn't do much.
Yeah, and they do the whole thing where they're kind of like running, or like he's running around and they're shooting at him. And eventually he finally would have got, like, he actually does shoot him right in the gut. It would have been a perfect shot, but the battery dies on the laser. They only have so many shots in them.
Yeah, and what he did do is he successfully kept Tetsuo busy long enough for the orbital weapon to hit him. And it's basically, it destroys an entire arm.
Yeah, just zaps his arm right off.
Which, that's not bad for getting hit by an orbital weapon, just losing one arm.
Yeah, I mean, and if it had been, targeted just a little more precisely, that probably would have just killed him. But just lost the arm. And it's pretty grim. The Sol satellite fires a few more times. Like, it almost gets Kaneda and Tetsuo both, but he kind of puts a dome over them. Yeah. And then he flies up into orbit and tears the satellite down.
Yeah, there's a moment in there where there's like multiple falling rocks, and Kaneda is trying to like dodge them one after another. It's a little slapsticky. It's a little silly. Like, of course, it's anime, and anime is going to have their little tropey things. Yeah. But like this movie's been mostly serious. It's been mostly free of anime nonsense.
But Kaneda running, I thought when that scene happens, I was like, oh, Dave's going to have to say something about this.
Yeah, it is a lame scene.
It's funny. It's just
it's not actually funny, though.
It was funny.
It was, okay, so when we watched The Hobbit and the movie, not the animated, and they were in the Goblin Cave, and there were bridge after bridge.
You know what the difference is?
That was this.
You know what the difference is?
What?
That goes on for 15 minutes in The Hobbit.
It's probably like 5 minutes. But this is just like 30 seconds.
Yeah, this is a brief scene. It's beautifully animated, and it gets a little laugh in
So here's
in
the
the
thing,
middle
though.
of the action.
When you're watching it and you're like, oh, Dave's going to say something, that's how you know it's out of place in this movie. It doesn't belong here. It's not part of this, I don't know, this story.
You just like things to be in little boxes.
I like things to have continuity. And that is like totally out of place.
Okay, if you say so. I don't think so. But back in the mobile lab, the colonel goes to see the doctor, and he figures out that the doctor has known for a hot minute that Tetsuo had the same sort of power levels as Akira, and he's livid because he told the doctor to terminate the subject if it was clear that we were heading for this.
But he's like, he was too good of a specimen.
Yeah, he's like, oh, but all this mad science I could do with this guy.
Yeah. He should have killed Tetsuo like when he first took the first readings. He's like, oh shit, this is a bomb waiting to go off.
Yeah, shut it down, put it in the refrigerator, and bury him under the earth.
Yeah.
But no, the doctor, because that's the way of mad scientists. And so Tetsuo, he just sort of sets himself up there at the Olympic Stadium as his little kingdom. Yeah, and he builds himself a robot arm.
He gets all RoboCop on us.
Yeah. And Kaneda and Kaisuke and Kei, they all kind of get away, and they're using their bikes to charge up the battery for the laser rifle.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool, using the bikes to charge the laser rifle.
And then Kaori gets to the Olympic Stadium to go help out her man.
Yeah, it's Tetsuo's girlfriend, and she shows up and he shows her the robotic arm, and she's like, ugh.
Yeah, she's pretty grossed out. She's very worried about him.
Yeah.
And the colonel also, takes it upon himself. He's like, I'm just going to walk in here with my sidearm.
Yeah, with a pistol. No big deal.
And I'm going to execute Tetsuo.
There was an orbital weapon that didn't work, but this sidearm, it's going to do the trick.
He's got to know it's a suicide mission. I think he's just like, I'm the only one with the stones to do this, and I'm just going to go in there and do it.
He should have at least got a laser rifle.
Right. He comes in and he makes one kind of final plea to Tetsuo. Come back to the lab. We'll get you the medicine, get you under control. You need to come back with me. You can't just be out here running wild.
And there's a really cool moment in this scene for animation when Tetsuo gets up from kind of his concrete throne, where the wires pull out of the concrete and like disengage from it, almost like blood vessels being pulled from an arm or whatever.
It's so gross.
It's so gross, but it's so artfully animated. It's just insane.
Yeah,
so much detail.
I know precisely what you're talking about, and because he's been melding.
He's like melding into the concrete structure
the longer he sits there. Yeah.
It's really really gnarly.
He's starting to freak out Kei, right? Or Kaori. She's the big goopy arm is starting to freak her out, and she's wanting to kind of get away from him. And while he's distracted, Colonel takes his shot and shoots him in the arm. And then he starts going really gross. Like his whole arm like expands, and it grabs the Colonel. And it's got all these like tiny little fingers growing out of it, and he's just enveloping the Colonel.
Yeah, this is where it gets to be all like body horror-ish.
Yeah, and I believe that's when Kaneda rolls back in with the recharged rifle, and he's on his bike, and he's basically taking shots at Tetsuo and driving around the stadium, trying to cat and mouse with him.
Yeah, like motorcycle guy with laser rifle. That's iconic. It's very cool.
Yeah, and Tetsuo starts to really lose it. Like he's no longer in control of his body.
Yeah, and he just like his body mutates into this giant mass of gnarly flesh, and it kind of like engulfs and encompasses Kaneda, and it kills Kaori. It just like crushes her.
It sucks them kind of both up. And while this is all going on, the ESPers arrive and start kind of communing with Akira. They're gonna wake up Akira.
Yeah, and like when I saw this part though, like with Tetsuo's body just going insane, he becomes like a flesh volcano. It's just gross.
It's like it occasionally kind of forms into like a baby, and then it explodes again, and the baby reforms, and like you said, inside Kaori just gets crushed inside, and then he's pleading with Kaneda to help him, and he's like, Kaori's pain is inside of me, and Kaneda still has the gun, luckily, and he blasts his way out, basically.
Yeah.
Gets out of it before he can be crushed inside of Tetsuo. And right around that time, Akira reawakens.
Yeah, and it's like a little mini supernova.
Yeah. The little boy Akira shows up and his friends, they call him Akira-kun, and like, they're happy to see him.
Yeah, they're his buddies from way back.
Yeah. And you see
before 1988.
Like what they all looked like before they became blue and wrinkled,
and
because he still looks like a little boy.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, like a supernova or a singularity kind of opens up, and Akira just starts absorbing everything.
Yeah, so basically it kind of does what it did in 1988, and it just starts bringing everything in again.
Yeah, and Kaneda, in the end, is sort of a good bro, because Tetsuo is like begging for him to help. And Takashi tries to stop him, and he throws him aside, and he's like, "That's my friend," and he follows Tetsuo into the singularity.
Yeah.
And Takashi goes in after him. He's like, "I have to help this boy." And Kyoko and Masaru, they talk about it, and ultimately they feel like it's their job to go in and rescue Kaneda, even though they won't be able to come back out again.
Yeah. It's pretty heartwarming that the three little espers go in there.
Yeah.
To try to save him.
Kyoko teleports the colonel away real quick, and then she joins her friends, and they go in, and we start experiencing Tetsuo's memories and Akira's memories and the Esper's childhood memories. We see we see Kaneda and Tetsuo when they're in the orphanage and how they became friends.
It becomes like an anime psychedelic kind of montage.
Totally. And I mean, you definitely see what the creators of Stranger Things, the Duffer brothers, what they were watching, because it's like the same sort of lab of psychic children that 11 comes out of.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of getting these images of all this stuff, and the Espers, they explain to Kaneda, we called Akira so that he would take Tetsuo away, and he's gonna take him to where he went to, and now we're all gonna go there. We're all gonna go there too. And Kaneda gets one more memory of Tetsuo from childhood, and then he hears Kei's voice calling him, and he wakes up outside of the event.
Yeah, they basically rescued him.
Yeah, they pulled him out, and then just like massive destruction, right? Like it's a whole destruction porn thing that goes on for quite a while.
Oh yeah, like
the city floods, the doctor gets crushed in the vortex. It's pretty grim.
Yeah, the whole thing, it's like basically Neo Tokyo just gets utterly destroyed, and then there's like a moment where it just goes completely silent.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing, like, it all starts with like the kernel of a circle of an image, and it opens up and it kind of moves, and it's this really cool artistic expansion. And it's later said that this is the birth of a universe. And it's just like, it's just really cool looking, this art. This birth of the universe. Yeah, and kind of everyone gets back together, right? Kei and Kaisuke, they find Kaneda, and they ride off on their bikes, and Kaneda's bike's in rough shape, but they kind of ride into the sunset. Yeah, it's like sparking on the front wheel and stuff.
Yeah, the colonel, he comes out of the tunnel, and we get some voiceover from Kyoko. and she talks about, someday they'll be able to control the power. And Masaru says, because it has already begun. And then more of like those visuals that you were talking about, like, kind of like circles and just shapes that it's hard to describe it visually. And then you have the voiceover from Tetsuo where he says, "I am Tetsuo, boku wa Tetsuo." And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, he just introduces himself.
It's
in like this other plane of existence.
And he introduces himself in like a humble way. That's something that it's hard to kind of grasp in English because we don't have so many different ways of referring to ourselves and stuff. Mm-hmm. But this is a very like a humble young man way of introducing yourself, not like God Tetsuo from earlier.
Yeah.
This is enlightened Tetsuo. And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, it starts off like a cyberpunk adventure, mm-hmm. and it ends up in this like surrealist sci-fi
body horror.
It just goes a whole other direction.
Totally. It does.
It's insane.
So then I guess they have to ask what worked for you.
I mean, the sound design and the art direction mm-hmm. were just flawless. I couldn't really find any flaws with how it looked or how it sounded. I loved the old school animation. Like mm-hmm. this era of animation, it's perfect for me. I love it.
I do. Even when it's not good, it's still good.
Yeah. and just the sounds. It's just like they know when to stop. Mm-hmm. They know when to lay it heavy. It's just so artfully done. And I enjoyed the setting quite a lot. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy this Neo Tokyo. I think that's really cool. And I liked how this plot was not, although it didn't give you like tons of crazy twists and turns, it was interesting and it was a good plot. It was engaging the whole mm-hmm. time. I didn't feel like there was a lot of time you could cut. It was a little over 2 hours. I think maximum if you cut some things like the boys' school scene here and there or whatever, you could maybe shave 15-20, but this movie moves right along.
I'd say the opposite in that it would benefit from being a little less compressed and having more time, like having
I think a
second and third movie.
This could be a 3-hour movie and it would probably be better for it. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, in my opinion, when you cut something down to the minimal, it would have been better if you just removed it altogether. Because like out of context school scene getting beat up, it's just pointless. It doesn't really help the scene. We already get it. These guys are hardened biker youths. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I mostly think that it was overall amazing. So I had a lot of personal highlights, but I just think that sticking to the sound and art direction and then the plot and setting, those are kind of my big things.
Yeah. I'm going to, kind of repeat what you said. My number one point, this is still a masterclass in traditional hand-painted animation. Mm-hmm. It is just absolutely exquisite. And the opening, like, gang bikes chase through Neo Tokyo is still breathtaking to this day. Like, this is still like held up there on a pedestal of like, this is how you do it. Mm-hmm. And it still looks that good. And then the stuff at the end with Tetsuo as he metamorphosizes is so gruesome and excruciating. It's like, it's all still holds up. The music from Geino Yamashiro Gumi, that's a huge part. Like the gamelan Indonesian percussion where they're drumming on bamboo and stuff just gives it this sort of, not otherworldly, but it's like supernatural sounding music. Mm-hmm. And it adds to that atmosphere. Otomo sought that group out to score the film, even though they'd never scored a film before. And it's a huge part of the vibe of the movie. And then Otomo Sensei's iconic character vehicle and set design. All this stuff it's liberally borrowed from the things that have followed. Ghost in the Shell, The Matrix, Stranger Things. Everyone is still going back to the well of Akira to sample from and get a little bit of that Akira juice.
Yeah, I think this is super influential. Like when I was watching it, I saw things like, oh yeah, that looks like The Matrix, or oh, that looks like this or that, and it's like, no, those things look like Akira.
Yeah,
because it's it's from the 80s. But it's weird that it's from the 80s, but it held up so well.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess what didn't work for me, if I'm going first, is I definitely feel like it had a weird timing. Either it should have been 2.5 hours or it should have been 2.5 hours or 1.5 hours. I feel like they either needed to expand on some of that side stuff or just chop it and make this super streamlined.
Okay.
I feel like some of that pacing was a little odd. I would say that some of the stuff does look a little dated with like even contemporaries like Blade Runner and RoboCop and whatnot, did some of the stuff. The stuff seemed more high tech in there than it did in Akira, and in animation, you can go even more gonzo because you're not held to physical props.
Right.
Yet they did stick with kind of old school looking stuff. Like, I guess that's a stylistic decision what the future is going to look like. I think maybe they're a little more accurate, that the future doesn't get as crazy as fast as other movies think.
It's like, it's 2019. We don't have flying cars.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
So I think that sometimes it was very clear that this was old school animation, but not in the amazing way, because you get a background, you get a background set painting and you have characters moving across it. And that wasn't always the case. That stuck out to me, but there was a couple times, like when they were leaving the police station and they were, he was talking to Kay and, trying to get her to go with them. It was very clear that these were characters superimposed on a static background painting. And so every now and then that just kind of sticks out to me in a dated way. But those are very minor gripes. I'm not going to say those are like heavy flaws. It's just, if I'm looking for things that didn't work, those are the things. And really there were only like one or two moments of that anime tropey, let's insert a moment of comedy because we can and it's a trope.
Right.
But it was very minor.
Okay.
What about you? What didn't work?
So similarly, I think condensing 6 phone book size tankobon manga volumes into a 2-hour movie is a next to impossible thing to do. And the fact that the manga was not even completed when they made this movie. This was made kind of while volume 4 was still being serialized and 5 and 6 were yet to be written. So they were in a bit of a Game of Thrones situation where they
needed a bit of fanfic.
They needed to complete this. It's not fanfic because Otomo wrote and directed the movie.
It? Okay.
Yeah. But he had to kind of fudge the ending, and it feels like it. The ending feels a bit rushed and underbaked. I would much rather this be multiple movies than one movie that doesn't quite capture it. And then the other thing is, and it's not exactly a criticism of the film, but just the complex and esoteric nature of the content has made this a very difficult movie to translate. And I feel like it's taken multiple times of dubbing it and subtitling it before I think they finally have landed on subtitles that actually capture the intent. But there has been a lot of iterations before this one that were quite a bit less clear. Sure. So those are kind of my criticisms. The first one is an actual criticism. The second one is a criticism of certain versions of it.
Okay.
So I guess rating. What do you rate?
Yeah, rating. So I was really kind of agonized about this rating because I don't. I'm usually pretty quick to choose a rating.
Yeah.
This one, I was pretty torn because it's almost perfect.
Right.
I wanted to give it a 5. Going into it, like before I started watching it, I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and watch a 5-star movie. Mm-hmm. At the end of it all, I don't quite think it's 5. I think it's almost there, but then it's really hard because I gave The Crow a 5. Yeah. I've given a lot of things 5 that I have a lot of sentimentality about it.
The Crow is a sentimental 5.
I don't think this is quite as good as Blade Runner. I think it's a shade below. It's a 4.9, which makes it a 4. So I have to give it 4 stars.
Yeah. I'm on the same page. I also go in with a 4. I think it's by just like the craft work of it. Mm-hmm. It's 5-star animation.
Yeah.
But it's a 4-star movie because it doesn't stick the landing.
And yeah, the writing was 4-star writing, 5-star animation.
Yeah. So. And I think, hopefully you'll read the manga, because I think anyone that's a fan of manga or comics or anything, this is a masterwork, and it should be there with all the things that when you read comics, it's like, okay, well, you have to read Watchmen, you have to read this, you should have to read all 6 volumes of Akira. It is just one of the best graphic novels that's ever been created.
Nice.
So I hopefully people listen to this and they'll
I'm really bad at
read those.
I'm really bad at reading super long graphic novels. The only one I've really got through all the way, I think, was Transmetropolitan.
With how many volumes is that?
I don't even know, because I did it all digitally.
Yeah.
See, I downloaded a torrent and just kept reading them until they were... This was back in the day.
It was back in the day before we had money.
This was like more than a decade ago. Like, this was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, yeah, you need to...
I think I should get that guy some money.
Call Warren Ellis and send him a little money.
Yeah.
That's Warren Ellis, right? Or is it Garth Ennis?
I can't remember.
I don't know,
I just love that shit.
British, Irish, Scottish guys.
Anyway, so here are the ratings from the big spots. IMDb gave it 8 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes gives it 91%, and Letterboxd gives it 4.2 out of 5. Mm-hmm. So a 4 is probably the right rating.
Yeah,
this is pretty true to form.
If we had fractions, we'd drift into that 4.252.
Or 4.5 or something like that. Yeah, but I prefer not to have the fractions. So I guess we'll take a short break and then we'll get back to it.
Okay, welcome back, divers. It's time for the final segment, the one where Ask Dave, what are you into right now?
All right, so I couldn't really think of anything super crazy to recommend. I mean, I've been watching Stranger Things, but that's old news.
It's a little old.
That's not really a good one. But there's a YouTube channel that I really like that I've been continuously watching called Riffs, Beards, and Gear. I've mentioned this in the past.
I think so.
But I don't think I've used it as a full-on recommendation.
Okay.
This guy, his name is Ryan Bruce. He's called Fluff. That's his nickname. He's in a band called Dragged Under, which is kind of a heavy metal, hardcore.
Okay.
It's not really my style of music, but he's a good guitar player. Anyway, he's got about 400,000 subscribers. He does a lot of guitar gear reviews and stuff, which is not why I watch. I don't watch guitar gear reviews because I know what I like. I'm not looking for new pedals, etc. But he has a couple of really great recurring shows. I don't know what do you call it when a segment?
Yeah.
He has recurring segments that he does, and there's 2 of them I really like, and I wanted to recommend the channel just for these 2, and they're not just for guitar players. I mean, if you're a guitar player or just a musician in general, you'll like them more. But there's one called Ridiculous Reverb Listings. So Reverb is a website that's like the biggest music gear like sales site. It's like people used to use eBay for this, but Reverb is specific for music, and it's great because it does all the sorting by the minutia, like the year and model of a guitar, etc. And this segment is hilarious because people send him reverb listings for things that are just completely insane. Sometimes it's because the item itself is insane. Like there was a reverb listing for a literally board planks from the stage that the Beatles played on, and there's like pictures of them playing on the stage, and they like match up some of the like knots in the wood and stuff, and it's like,
how do you verify that?
Yeah,
okay. Wood grain is kind of
and so it's just, and sometimes, and like for seriously, like that was like $100,000 they wanted for that. And then there's like crazy things like insanely modified guitars that are like things that people do that just absolutely destroy a guitar. And then they call it like custom modifications, and they try to charge like triple retail or whatever. This show is hilarious because his reactions and the way he describes these things are extremely funny.
Okay.
So I enjoy that. And then he has another one called Rate or Roast My Rig, where you send him a picture of your music equipment, like just set up, and he does kind of a funny little review of your gear. And he'll oftentimes like invent fantastical scenarios about who owns this stuff based on it. Like if he sees like you've got like typical stuff that Doom players use, he's like, I can smell this room right now. It smells like you spilled the bong water. And he'll like just go off about the stuff, and he'll give a rating. And if you have a dog in the picture, you automatically get a 5 out of 5. And it's beards is his rating. So you get 5 out of 5 beards. Yeah.
And what do you call it?
It's riffs, beards, and gear. Because he's like a guy like, he's in Seattle, so he's kind of Seattle guy. He's got a big beard, and he plays he reviews gear, and he's a riffer, so riff, beards, and gear. Okay. And so it's just a really great YouTube channel if you're interested in music stuff. I definitely recommend checking out some of his videos. He's really funny and very charismatic. So I like that show. How about you? What are you into right now?
So I just finished today. I actually didn't think I was going to be done with the book. I thought this was going to be in process in what I was into right now. But I just finished Luda, a novel by Grant Morrison. Oh. It's Grant Morrison's debut novel. Their description, or the description on Goodreads, was a drag queen initiates her protege into the magical arts in this phantasmagoric epic. I think epic's overselling it a little bit. It's a hard book to describe. Grant Morrison says it's a retelling of the myth of Merlin and Nimue, I guess, but told with drag queens. There's sort of elements of autobiography in it, a little bit of a murder mystery, a little bit of a magical how-to. It's a story within a story within a story, maybe with it. It's got at least 3 layers, maybe 4 to it.
Is it kind of urban fantasy-ish?
It's a little urban fantasy. It's not a Dave book. I'll just
Put that
say
out
that
there.
out right now. I don't think you'd like it.
Okay.
But I was into it. Then I was loving it on the edge of my seat, and then I don't feel like it quite stuck the landing.
Okay.
It's got a 3.5 on Goodreads. Which I don't know if that's a reliable website or not. It was just the first one that came up, and I think that's a good review for this book.
Okay, so
I was all set to give it a full on 4, and then I was unsatisfied with the ending.
Just kind of bit it.
But it's like it's got a pretty good mystery in it and a lot of twists. And Grant Morrison is one of these guys like Neil Gaiman, where I just love the way he uses words, and so. Whatever he's writing, I want to read it because I like the words he uses. He's good at words.
I checked out your what are you into right now from last time? This Fool?
Oh, did you watch that?
Yeah, I think I watched like 2 or 3 episodes. It wasn't a Dave show. I'll just say that. Mostly because I found it hard to watch that guy just get shit on all the time. I just don't like that.
As it gets deeper into it, I think it's because I know that guy. I know him pretty inside and out.
Yeah.
And Lisa was like, man, his girlfriend's so terrible to him. And
exactly.
I
hated that.
And I was like, he makes all these problems for himself. And I was like, this is all his doing. He wants all this to happen and he makes it happen. And as the series plays on, my point became clear.
He brought this about on himself.
How he's his own worst enemy. Yeah. But well, I'm glad you checked it out. But I love that show.
It was all right. I just didn't like seeing a guy get shit on all the time. But you know what TV show came back that I did start watching again? So this is like a bonus. This is like a PS. What are you into right now? It's only a few episodes out, but the Paramount Plus brought back Ink Master with new people, new hosts, and I actually think they, because there's like 13 seasons or some shit. I think that they did a darn good job. Because
so who are the new hosts or the new judges? Ami James is on there.
Ami James, Ryan, one of the past Ink Masters, who's like super good, and oh man, what's the guy's name? The Japanese guy, Nico Hurtado.
Oh
yeah, and so their judges are legit.
Nico Hurtado is a great tattooer.
Well, him and Ami James are both like legends.
Yeah.
So it's hard to argue with those guys. And I like that it's more about the art. Like I kind of feel like earlier in the series, there was a lot of kind of reindeer games. Like now it's really just about tattooing.
Yeah.
I like that more.
Less of the sensational part of reality show and more about just the skills.
Like, let's do some dope. Oh yeah, and it's a Legends season. Everyone on it is a bring back, so they're all legit excellent.
Yeah. I saw that was back. And
since I like tattoos, I was gonna give it a shot.
Ami James is exceptional at like Japanese traditional tattooing, and Nico Hurtado's like photorealistic tattoos are like bonkers.
His use of color is ridiculous.
I never liked that style before I saw his tattoos, and then I was like, oh wow, like you can do this.
Anyone would wear his tattoos.
And he's from Victorville, California, where I was born. So
nice. That's legit.
Yeah, I think he's pretty cool. Well, call to action.
Subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher, as well as YouTube, Spotify, and Audible. Don't forget to leave us a review. 5-star review costs you nothing, but means everything to us.
New episodes of Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse drop the 1st and 15th of every month, and you can find us on all social media platforms across the Metaverse as at Deep Dive the Meta. We are on Twitter, which Dave likes. We're on Instagram, which I like, but we are still stubbornly on Pinterest, which no one likes.
Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.